How do you drive the fucking thing? This week on That Car Show, we're joined by guest and friend of the show, Jorge Aquino from Tormenting Tarmac. He tells us why we're wrong about Corvettes and why the world needs just as many Corvettes as there are Porsche 911 variants. Lindsey talks to us about her track car and how a gremlin for 5 years gets solved within an hour. I lose all dignity when I talk about climbing out of a Lotus Elise. Luckily, no one was watching but CCTV. And Ryan gives us the full nuts and bolts story about what it's like to drive one of the most legendary Porsches of all time, the Carrera GT. We learn about the tyres, we learn about the seats, we learn about the upholstery, but what's really important is we learn how you drive these things. All this and more on this week's car show. That Car Show, always be driving. Welcome to this week's episode of That Car Show. The gang is all here as well as a special guest. But before I get to the special guest, just a quick overview of what the team are up to right now. Firstly, we'll be talking about Lindsey, and not only has she found new love, but she's also rekindled old love. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Ryan should be floating about 10 feet above his desk because the day he's had is probably one of the best car days of his whole life. He's on cloud nine. But before we get to that, it's all Ryan, you might as well just pack up and go home, but we'll talk about that in a while. But we've got a special guest, Jorge Aquino from the podcast Tormenting Tarmac. Welcome, Jorge.
Hi, Jorge.
What's going on, everybody? It's great to see you guys.
Great to have you on the show.
Good to see you. Yeah,
it's my first time on the new show, I think. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah,
it is. But we got a text before last week's show that said, guys, if you're going to talk about Corvettes, I want in.
Yeah.
Then we talked about Corvettes. Then we got 10 more texts the next morning. To the show. I think, just to put in a bit of context, we weren't saying we didn't like the Corvette. I think, and it was mainly me, I was saying I didn't understand why they were bringing out another super hot, quick all-wheel drive when there's already an all-wheel drive, there's already a super hot, quick one. And Jorge is a bit of a subject matter expert on Corvettes. So welcome to the podcast, and educate us, Jorge.
Sure. Well, first of all, I wouldn't call myself a subject matter expert on Corvettes in any way, shape, or form. On the record right now, for anybody who listens to That Car Show, I appreciate Corvettes in the same way that I appreciate almost every sports car known to man. I have a little bit of a special relationship with Corvette right now because my best friend and my co-founder of Tormenting Tarmac, Ron, works at General Motors for GM Performance, and he's had actually a lot to do with the hot versions of the C8 over the last couple of years. So it's more of like a special relationship, if you will. Like it's like my best friend worked on it, so like I get a little bit like, hey, yo, what you say? Yo, back up. It's kind of like that. But, DP and, first of all, Lindsey and Ryan, you guys don't get off scot-free. Let me tell you right now. I listened to the entire episode last week. I heard everything y'all had to say. Okay? I literally sent Dan the gif of Optimus Prime saying, I'll take you all on. That was the whole thing. So you guys don't get scot-free. But
can we just, for the record, we're talking about the ZR1X.
Yes,
right.
We're going to talk.
Correct.
I'm just going to talk about ZR1X and whatnot. So let me be clear.
I'm just trying to have a good time.
I'm here for a good time, not a long time. Exactly.
You two fight it out.
Well, because I want to answer Dan's question. Dan said, "What's the point of Chevrolet bringing out another hot Corvette?"
Right.
None of you, and I know the three of you pretty gosh darn well at this point, none of you have ever questioned why Porsche brings out another hot 911.
Well,
tell me when I'm lying.
No, you're absolutely correct.
Let me stop you there. Right.
Nope, that's not true.
So Corvette owners,
that's not true.
There's a Corvette for people over the age of 70. There's a Corvette for the rental companies, so you can hire one. There's
Dan, for example,
like me. But like, there are Corvettes for people who want to do track days. But why is there a Z01, a Z01X, and what's the
Regular
electric one?
The E-Ray?
The E-Ray.
The E-Ray. Why do you need all three? Why can't you have one car that does everything?
All right, DP, why is there a 911 Turbo S and a 911 GT2 RS? You know, like
Because,
that's
it's easy, right? One's for real estate brokers, and the other's for track people.
right. So
Problem solved.
I look at it as Chevrolet. Sure, right? I consider the E-Ray the one for a 65-year-old who has always trashed hybrids for the longest time, but they put one in a hot Corvette, and they're like, "Oh, buddy, so this is what all-wheel drive feels like." And then doing it on the ZR1, it's like, I think it's for the hot boys with a lot of money, but then just to me, the ZR1X can go to a lot of different people, to be quite honest with you. I think it can go for those who are the ultimate Corvette enthusiast, because I think we'd be dumb to not say that this is the most insane Corvette ever made. They have chosen.
Let's break down the specs real quick.
Yeah,
Sorry,
let's
before we
do it.
get any further,
Sure.
tell us what we don't know.
My understanding is it's the 5.5 liter out of the Z06, but now strapped with the twin turbos. It's the exact same engine as the ZR1, which is the 5.5 liter V8. I think Redline is down from 8,600 to like maybe closer to like very low, like maybe 8K in total.
So you don't explode. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Twin turbo with the E-Ray electric motors. So instead of making the 1064, it's making a total of, I believe, 1,250,
Which is comical.
which is hilarious. Mind you, I don't know what prices are because they haven't announced it yet. But considering that MSRP on a regular ZR1 is like makes no difference. Let's call it with options 2 to 210 when you're not charging double on the adjusted market inflation as we have seen.
Selling for sale for $500,000 this evening.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. By the way, 2
town.
days ago, I saw a 911 ST. It was ridiculous, but I saw a 911 ST going for 800 like 3 days ago. So, like,
Well, that's worth it, Jorge.
That tracks,
of
though.
course.
Yeah.
Lindsey knows that a 911 GT3 Touring is on my 10-car garage list because we had this conversation 2 months ago. This is very true.
Right.
But
Yeah.
so those are the specs, right? And if I don't know what they're going to sell it for, if they sell this car at like 300 grand, I think that they're cooking. I think that that's a good number to sell, which is a lot. I know it's a lot, Lindsey. It's crazy to go ahead and think a Corvette.
Sorry, was
going
my
at
expression
MSRP
that
at
loud?
300 grand. They
A
saw your expression
$300,000
from
Mustang
me.
would be okay, though, right, Lindsey?
Listen,
The dark horse, right? Maybe that's
well,
sort of the
that was
closest.
that was the announced price when they debuted
I'm sorry, the GTD.
the GTD. They said it was
Yeah.
300, but even the most dedicated Mustang
Which it's not.
enthusiasts were that was giving everybody pause. And then I think by the time they were before they were delivered, the price increased. I mean, that's a big number, right? Like that's a big number, period.
But I mean no besmirchment when I say this because I love a Mustang just as much as anybody else does.
This is how we know it's about to get good.
To compare them,
So I need like a vocabulary button to press when I hear a word like that.
to compare
Look at this guy.
any Mustang, regardless of whether or not Multimatic is building it or not, to compare that to the hottest Corvette on sale is blasphemous. And Miss Jesh, you should know better. You know what I'm saying? Like it's rough to it's I think it's crazy to try and compare the two. I mean, on the regular weight end, it's going to be like a 3,500 pound car.
Name two more direct competitors, though.
I've never considered the Mustang a direct competitor to the Corvette. I consider the 911 or a Cayman more of a direct competitor to the Corvette than I ever would a Mustang. Mustang Camaro to me has always been more the competitors, respectfully.
Yeah.
Now
And Firebird,
I think
rest in peace.
GTD is a little bit different. You're absolutely right. I think GTD is somewhat different. Now these are the same people that built the GT 10 years ago, the Ford GTs. It's Multimatic, right? But I still. You know, the Corvette to me has been, especially with C8 in the last 5 years, it's been moved so far past beyond what it's ever been with the mid-engine configuration that I think GM is looking at this. Exactly. It helps them be able to go ahead and pull off this crazy ass idea of we're going to quadruple the horsepower from where it is as a base C8 Z51. A base Z8 Z51 is 495 horsepower, guys. Like, That's already a fast car that's doing 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds, and it's running a very high 11 quarter mile for, I don't know, you buy a 2LT and you're looking at 70 grand and you're cooking. We're good, right? We are so far beyond that. It's not even funny. Corvette has always been that type of car that's always punched so far above its weight because it's their bread and butter. It's their, it's their halo. It is their halo product. And I think that they look at it as a way of, if we can take all the cool, crazy parts and put it all together and just sell it, there will be a buyer. Yeah. I think that's the way that they look at it.
Who is that buyer?
Well, okay, so we discussed that earlier. I think one of the buyers will be the most crazy Corvette enthusiast who has a ton of cash, who's got every single Corvette imaginable and every single cool Corvette imaginable. So it's going to be that person that has a C7 ZR1 with a 7-speed manual, or a C6 ZR1 and a C6 Z06 with like the crazy cool packages. They'll probably have a 63 split window in the collection too. A 454 big block 68 C3. It'll be that person that also, listen, I'm not this guy, but I can imagine someone with a Mustang GTD also buying a ZR1X, because they have that cash flow. So I think there's that buyer.
Have they said how many they're going to make?
They haven't, and that's where it scares me, Lindsay. That's where I'm at. That's where I get afraid.
Just keep me up at night? What's going on?
No. Yeah, but what I mean by that is
say more about what are these fears that you're having?
What am I afraid of? I'll tell you. And if my buddy Ron listens to this, I hope he doesn't take offense to it. But I think Corvette has a bad habit of over making the cars. And what I mean by that is they make too many of them that it loses the luster. I think that if you're going to make a ZR1X, I think you should make it limited. I really do. You can, and even with the ZR1, I think they should make ZR1s relatively limited. You look at C7 ZR1s, for example, especially the ones with the 7-speed manual. Those are going for stupid money. Stupid money. I'm talking like mid 300,000s right now. Really? That you can buy one. Yeah, they're going nuts. And because I think so little people ordered that car, there's not a lot of C7 ZR1s with a manual. There's tons with an 8-speed automatic.
Interesting. I had no idea.
They're holding value, but it's the 7-speed manuals that are going for crazy money. And why I say it scares me is I want people to be able to enjoy this car, but I also don't want it to be that in 7 or 8 years' time, doubt that this will happen, but just bear with me for 1 second, that all of a sudden we have a 1,250 horsepower V8 Corvette out on the streets that someone with relatively good credit can all of a sudden, because it's come down in value, I can get into a ZR1X. You have no right of getting into that car because you are an ignoramus, like myself. You know what I mean? I want the ZR1X to be far away from
you. You presuppose, though, that income has a correlation with driving ability. And I'm here to say
I mean, I'm not lying.
Maybe a little bit, but you're 1,200 horse. Is that what 1,200 horsepower?
1,250.
12, like that is insane power.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking. Like I'm a fan of this. Power. I'm a fan of this, but I'll tell you right now, I have no idea what in the actual fuck they were thinking, guys.
That's
that is crazy.
Power.
Yeah.
That's Bugatti power. That's Pagani power, right? Like that's crazy power. Mm-hmm. Like, is that even fun? I don't know. I've never driven a car with 1,200 horsepower.
I would assume so. I think you have to. Like, I heard you. Here, I look at it this way because I heard you guys talk about it last week, and you guys were saying like, where do you use this? I think that if someone were to, because there will be people who track their ZR1s for sure, their Z06s and ZR1Xs. I think you have to go ahead and choose the right track. Like, are you going to take this to Laguna? Yeah. Nah, I don't think so. Like, you'd have to be nuts to want to take this to Laguna. You got to take this out to like Coda. You got to go ahead and take this out to somewhere where you got a ton of space. Like, I don't know, Lindsay, like, how do you think this would do at Big Willow once it's done? Like, on the straights, it would be bananas.
The straights, it would be insane, but I feel like you might, like, you would be so quick on them. I think it would probably be really fun at Big Willow because it is so open and you have, the big sweeping turn before the front straight. Like, you could definitely open it up. But Willow is not forgiving if you go off. And it is like there's no walls.
Yeah, how are the brakes on this thing?
I mean, over the last 15 years, I think Chevy Corvette's brakes, whether it's the carbon ceramics or not the carbon ceramics, are some of the best brakes in sports cars. Yeah, and I'm not just saying that. So the brakes to me are the last of my concern.
I think the bigger concern would be like, is the person driving it, like, do they have the skills to do it? That's going to be the biggest determining factor.
I just think, but on a positive end, I look at it as what a time to be alive, genuinely, because now we've entered an era.
Amen.
And, you know what I mean? We've entered this. We're in a really cool spot where I think the four of us have always had this conversation of like cars or there's too much going on. We like the analog feel. Like Lindsey, you drive an E36. DP, you had the GR for a while. Ryan, you got the GT4. Like, those are like some great driver's cars. I have a great Kia Sorento, which is obviously the best driving SUV on the market today, and whatnot. But we always complain.
No question.
Hands down. Obviously, I had to go ahead and put that in there, guys. Come on now. We live in this era where, there's a lot of nannies and the computers they're all over the place, right? But at the same time, we're living in an era where we get Lamborghini Revueltos with 1,000 horsepower. We're getting two different Corvettes with 1,000 horsepower plus. We are getting a Mustang that's running the Nürburgring. Oh, by the way, ZR1X on the Nürburgring would absolutely be a flyer. But we have Mustangs now on the Nürburgring, which are running under 7 minutes. If that's not big energy, I don't know what is. We have GT3s that like you can't catch a GT3 on a back road. Like, it's just impossible. Yeah. So I have to look at it as, we can complain all we want about what these cars have in the computers and stuff like that, but we also have to realize that engineering has gone so far above and beyond what we could have ever imagined 20 years ago, let alone 30 or even 40. Like, it's like, it is a cool time to be a car enthusiast. Yeah. A really cool time.
We've talked about this, right? Like, just even in our lifetimes, like how much things have changed. I mean, the idea of a 1,250 horsepower anything, much less a Corvette, is just mind-blowing. You're the outlier here in this group, having been born in '89, Jorge. But, the three of us grew up with some real crap.
Hey, dude.
We should be celebrating this. I think that's what you're getting at, right? We should be celebrating this. We should, if this were anything else but a Corvette, we'd think this was like, God's gift to us, right?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned the fact
that you damn Corvette name gets in the way.
Yeah. But, you say that, but, Lindsey was at a Le Mans, and, like, Corvette's been running Le Mans for, like, 15 years.
Yeah.
Cadillac has been, that's the one thing that I always have to go ahead and point out to people. Like, it's like, oh, but it's Chevy. It's like, well, Chevy's been racing for, like, 100 years now, guys.
Yeah.
That's not to you. That's to anybody else.
Yeah, that's not new.
They've been going to Le Mans. That's not new. They've been going to Le Mans for 30-plus years. They've won Le Mans on so many countless occasions. It's so funny that I'll give you a perfect example. I remember having a conversation with some friends about this. When Cadillac, they were trying to get in last year, and F1 told them no the first time, they had the audacity to say, oh, you don't have enough of a history to really warrant a spot of the 11th car on the grid. And it's like, you're saying that to Cadillac, who's under the General Motors brand, who basically his main person has been Chevrolet, which has the most iconic American sports car in the history of our lifetime. And you're telling them they don't have the racing history to go ahead and be allowed into F1? That's crazy to me. Yeah. So when people, I get the stigma that comes along with the Corvette. In the same way that there's a stigma with the Mustang, there's a stigma with BMWs, and you can keep going. There's stigmas with Teslas for good reason.
What was the word, Jorge? Besmirchment?
Yeah. Besmirchment. I'll besmirch Tesla.
I think you nailed it.
Yeah.
Right?
But the besmirchment is that the baby boomers are the ones that should only be associated with Corvettes. But Corvettes have been making Chevy has been making cool Corvettes for a long time, especially the last 15 years. Like, you can't hate them. for what they're up to.
No.
So do we think there's enough of an audience, like if we go with your like theory of it's, you know, the true Corvette enthusiasts, do we think there's enough of an audience of like dedicated Corvette enthusiasts with that kind of money to support something like this?
I think there is. I don't think, you know, Chevrolet is such an enormous brand. You know that they go ahead and research this, right? They're not just going to go ahead and make a Corvette. Like we would hope, right? I mean, they've been around for 100 years. You would hope that they've done some studying, right? No, but I think that there will be. I do think, and you know, the way I look at it, ZR1 and Dan and I had this conversation last week. Was I look at ZR1X as a trim up on ZR1. It's a ZR1 plus, so it's not like a separate model. I consider ZR1X the way you would almost look at as an RS over a GT3. That's kind of how I look at it.
Okay.
And I really do.
How dare you speak the name of Porsche in the same?
Oh my God, that's gonna piss off a few people. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I think there will be. I mean. There's a lot of people. I mean, we live in a lifetime where there's a lot of millionaires out there, guys, let alone billionaires. Wow. So I don't.
There has been a consolidation of wealth. I think we can all agree.
We ain't those peeps, but you know that there is. I think that there are going to be people who will want to buy this car, but I do believe that if they were to make ever a Corvette, any of the C8s limited, ZR1X would be that one to make a little bit limited. Make more regular ZR1s, although I think that the regular ZR1 to me is more of the car that I would go for as opposed to the X. Or honestly, I kind of want to call it Zora, but that's not the name that they decided to give it, and that's on them. But yeah, I think there will be. And you know that there's going to be dealerships marking them up like crazy, like we're seeing regular ZR1s get, jacked up right now. So
who was that sent that link earlier of the four of us, right? The one for $500,000.
So that was a dealership in Florida. Eddie X is the one that first shared it, but yeah, it's a dealership in Florida. Man, those Floridian dealerships, man, they sure know how to mark up like crazy, man. That's not the first time.
That humidity will.
It really messes with their brains.
Go to the head. Yeah.
It probably makes them type in wrong numbers wrong, to be quite honest. Yeah, if there was ever a car that they'd want to limit, I would say it's this one. But there will be buyers. I mean, so I looked it up, man. There's at least 15 to 20 different 911 models that you can go ahead and buy. So that means that there's a 911 for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Which means that, Porsche's out here charging $300,000 MSRP wise for a 3RS. They're charging $250 for a 911 Turbo S.
Yeah.
They're charging Littles makes no difference, $400 MSRP for an ST if you can get one. There's a lot. Yeah,
just going to say, technologically speaking, this ZR1X is probably every bit as good a well-engineered product as anything Porsche is doing. I get that, right? And constructed and everything else, right? We do have a double standard, admittedly.
Sure, you guys know how much of a Porsche fan I am. You guys know that. I'm with you. If you gave me a 911 and a Corvette, I'm going to go ahead and go with the 911. But I also know that Corvettes, they're cool, man. They do they make some cool cars, and
there we have it.
Making a damn good case.
I'm trying. I listen. The biggest.
If you're listening, you should be sponsoring Tormenting Tarmac because he's the one flying that flag for you.
I'm waving that what is it, the Punisher whatever logo flag for you guys?
Oh, God.
I'm gonna go ahead and put that as part of my freaking logo for TT.
You'll even get a tattoo if you sponsor him.
Sure, man. I'll send you a check. Absolutely.
Jorge, how hot is it in Phoenix tonight?
Actually, it was a nice, mild summer day, guys. I was looking at a high earlier. I know. I tried to say that with as much of a straight face as I could.
It's 111 today, guys.
Oh, so it was 104 here on the west side. So if it's hotter in Denver than it was in Phoenix today, I'll take
that. No, I'm joking. No. I just
okay.
I think we were a balmy 86 or something, but
okay, but it's with humidity that can go ahead and get a little nutty. But I look at it in a good way. In the next couple of weeks, I get a chance to go ahead and stop by LA. I may or may not be seeing Sir Daniel Pilling. I'm very excited. Lindsey, if you're an OC, I would tell you to come and meet my family and meet up with me and hang out with us and go to Peterson if you want to. Just throwing that out, and I know that I have limited time, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. Yeah, for sure. I'm going to stop ranting. I want to, first of all, thank the three of you for letting me come and crash the party for 20 minutes. Anytime. You guys know how much I love you, and I love what you're doing. And you guys are my not only my friends, but you guys are legends or heroes. Ryan, you're one of the best storytellers I've ever met in my entire life. Daniel, you are a gentleman and a scholar, and I try to be like you.
Apparently a knight.
Yes, very much so. He's absolutely been knighted by me. I'm not royalty, but I'll be happy to knight you. And then Lindsey, you're an absolute angel. I love talking with the three of you. You guys are amazing. Send my love to Troy. Congratulations on the engagement. I love to see it. And just keep doing you guys' thing. I'm loving everything you guys are doing. So I appreciate the time. Okay.
Thanks for joining us, Jorge.
Thank you for
standing up for the little American guy in jorts and New Balance. But
listen, if I don't do it, we're gonna have plenty other people that are gonna want to do it that are not the right messengers. You know what I'm saying? That's all. That's all I'm trying to say.
We will all be that little man someday. So or woman.
100%. If not us, then who? That's always been the thing. So, but to everybody listening, thank you all for listening to me rant about C8 Corvette ZR1Xs. If you've got the money and you really are interested in one, fucking buy one and drive it. Don't flip it. Drive it. Yeah, and tell us about it. Let Ryan drive it for the magazine, for the website. Yeah.
Tormenting Tarmac. At Tormenting Tarmac on Instagram. Give the guy a follow. It's a good follow.
I appreciate that. Right? No, I try to be.
Check out the podcast.
Thanks for everything, guys. Thanks for being a part of the 150 journey. I appreciate it very much. You guys are the best. Okay.
Thanks, buddy.
Congratulations.
Take care.
All right. Cheers, guys. See you soon.
All right. Bye.
And normal
love that guy.
regime. He is such a top guy. We're lucky to have him as a friend.
Absolutely.
So I have to tease him. Do you think Tori's going to be upset about Troy?
I thought for a second about all right, let's cut that again, and then
no, it's more fun this way.
The sentiment is there.
Perhaps he was thinking Brad Pitt was in Troy. That's where he was going, maybe.
Right? I mean, I can't argue with it.
Lindsey, my whole life I've not once been called an angel. That there is currency.
Remedy right there.
For a long, long time, right?
I mean,
so
I will take it.
Three of us. I want to save Ryan's story to the end because it's probably his highlight of the year. So, I don't know. We're going to meet in Car Week, so second highlight of the year. Lindsey, you have been reacquainting yourself with old loves and getting something ready. So what have you been up to?
So my E36 M3 track car has come back to life thanks to Troy and...
Troy Racing.
Troy Racing, run by Tori Alonso. So the car was parked in 2019, and at the time that it was parked, it had a decades-long electrical gremlin that people were slowly starting to suspect was electrical, which, if anybody has ever tried to chase one of those down, you know what a thankless nightmare that is.
That was the era of biodegradable wiring harnesses too. Let's just for the record, right?
The,
that was a
mouse
tricky
buffet
period
and all of that. Yeah. It would stumble on the street, and I would joke, trying to find the humor in the situation. It would be absolute perfection on the track. I would pull off the track to go back to my spot in the paddock, and it would stumble as I was literally pulling off the track. And I'm like, listen, I understand that your happy place is on the track, but I have to be able to get from the track entrance and exit to our parking spot. And and then got to the point where it was stumbling more and more, and then just different circumstances. The car ended up being parked in 2019, and I have dragged it behind me like a questionable anchor for the last few years, wondering what I was doing with this giant silver paperweight. And Tori and I started talking about it, and I was describing the issue, and he said, well, what if we just put a new battery in it and maybe change out the spark plugs? And I don't think I've ever seen a more Cheshire Cat grin when he came upstairs with the old spark plugs.
Tell ya.
Like, we're going to play a little one of these things that's not like the other. And he started setting them down one by one. And he got to the sixth one, which had 0 electrodes left.
Oh, wow. We saw a picture of this, in fact.
Yes.
Follow Follow Lindsey on Instagram because there's a photo of this thing, and it is gone.
No electrodes.
So does that mean you're going to sack your original mechanic?
Consider him sacked.
You're fired.
This ship has a new captain, I'm afraid.
Or co-captains or whatever.
Whatever
makes you happy.
I mean, this guy's invaluable, right? We should all have a Tory, Troy,
right,
in our lives.
Get yourself a Troy.
Yeah.
Well, one of my friends in Seattle was laughing because she said, "Yeah, he posted like, all right, let's see, let's start investigating the car." And she goes, like an hour later, he posted it was running, it was turned around, he's driven it like.
That unsolved mystery solved in record time.
Yeah, wow. Done. Not much of a show, but.
It's such a good-looking thing, that car, and I always,
love it so
I've
much.
gone on the record saying the 4-door looks better than the 2-door.
Well, and the ironic part of the fact that it's a 4-door is that when I was looking for one, I said it has to be the sedan version, which they only made for 2 years, because I want to be able to take people, and the car now is a 4-door 2-seater because the back seat got ripped out. It's got a half cage in it, Best
like
laid plan,
a GR
right?
Corolla. What was the
Maurizio? It's the
Maurizio,
BMW Maurizio edition.
Yes,
right,
yes,
exactly.
Yes,
a homemade Maurizio. Yeah, but it's and it's funny because in the interim, from 2019 to now, there was a stock one that came up, and it was literally the exact configuration of mine. It was a 4-door silver, integrated like stock spoiler that came with it from the factory and all this. And I saw that one, and I'm like, well, maybe I just need that. So I went and test drove it, and I hadn't driven mine in probably 4 years at that point. And I'm like, well, this will be a good test to see, like, do I even really like these anymore? And Paul Kramer likes to describe when you get a car that's new to you, and you start going like, oh, well, I'm going to update this, and I'm going to update this, and I'm going to make this change. Yeah. He calls it nesting. And I realized partway through the first test drive that in my head, I was nesting already with this car. So I'm like, all right, I still like them. So luckily I hung on to mine, and it is now registered on the street as well. So
nice.
It has been doing a lot of the school runs and delighting my family.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think
story as old as time, though, right? Like you have a car, something, you don't know, something goes wrong with it, and you just set it aside, and it becomes part of the landscape, and and it's. I'm so glad that you revived it because these are so good. They're so good.
I mean, and honestly, it's like, and it has never run better, truly. Like, and it was the most basic fix. Now, my dad did remind me the engine was replaced in that car because it ended up with oil starvation during a track day, and the engine seized.
Oh, really?
So it's not it's not the stock engine, and obviously we don't know what the mileage was on the engine, like the replacement engine. So the spark plugs that were in it came with the replacement engine, but still.
Oh, okay. Was that a thing in those cars, the oil starvation? I mean, it's a pretty common thing, especially with increased tire technologies and all this. If you're
tracking them, ideally you would put in like a baffled oil pan so that it, holds, it doesn't all end up on one side, which is what happened with my car.
Sure.
But
that just means you were moving.
Well, I wasn't the one driving it actually at that point, but yes, I can attest that the car was not slow and it was being driven spiritedly at the time. Yeah. So but I love it so much, and because it's never run better, I have full confidence in it, and it's I'm just getting to enjoy it and get reacquainted. And my daughter, because it was a track car and it had no back seats, and she was little, she rode in it for a half a block one time her entire life up until it was parked. So we're now getting to enjoy it together too. Nice. And her smile when I pick her up at school in it. And there've been some really cute conversations that we've overheard as the kids walk out of school. There was this one really adorable little boy, he and his friend were walking out, and they saw it because it's got race seats and it's got harnesses and it's got a cage. And so if you look in the window, you're like, something's different here.
And that car show podcast sticker.
And that car show podcast sticker, which adds 25 horsepower, I'm told.
Right.
I don't know. According
Never
to
run
Troy.
better.
I don't know. That's what Troy says. Who knows? But he seems to know what he's doing.
He knows a lot, considering it took him an hour to revive it, right?
I know. And so this one little kid, I mean, they're junior high, said to his friend, like, I think it's probably a drift car. Yeah, I think so. And then he happened to walk, like they happened to be walking by right as I started it. And then he said with great authority to his friend, oh, yeah, obviously. You can tell by how it sounds. It's a drift car.
Yeah. What's up?
And then did he say, and it's got new spark plugs?
Yeah. Right. Do you hear that? That is distinctly the sound of brand new spark plugs.
Right.
Are Bosch Platinum plugs still the move? Like, I haven't replaced spark plugs in a minute.
Well, so that was how, that's how we know that the plugs that were replaced, they were the original plugs on the replacement engine because they said made in Germany, and they haven't used those in a long time.
Oh, okay. Where are they made now?
I mean, not Germany.
Not Germany.
I'm going to go with not Germany. I mean, I would guess.
Germany.
I feel like the default safe answer is China.
Oh, yeah.
But
Opened it up so it could be anywhere, not Germany.
Yeah,
so
not
I
Germany.
tried to drive a car this weekend. Tried to test drive a car and test drive another car. I've always wanted to try the Lotus Elise.
Oh, okay.
And
because it's wonderful.
because it appears to be wonderful. So I went to Beverly Hills Lotus. They'd organised for the car to be available for me to have a look at and drive.
That's a place?
It is a place, yeah, and very nice people.
Okay.
They have a Undercroft car park, so I met the sales guy in the Undercroft car park.
What does that mean for us Americans? An underground?
An underground car park.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was there in this underground car park, and they didn't have the keys, but the car was open. So he said to me, you know, go look at it, sit in it, all that sort of good stuff, and I'll be back with the keys. So anyway, I opened the door. The first thing I didn't realize is how big that sill is. So you've got a sill because it's a tub.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got this sill, and then you've got the seat. The car still had the hardtop on it. So anyway, I managed to lower my little bottom onto the sill and push myself into the car. The sales guy's still not around, and I'm like, I don't fit in this. The steering wheel was minute. So before he came back, I thought I'll get out. Getting out of that car was an act of contortionism. It was an act of losing my dignity. I literally had to crawl out onto the floor. And
Lotus of Beverly Hills. I'd love to see that security video.
That's
if you've got it handy.
Yeah, for the YouTube.
Thank goodness for not having an audience, right?
Right. I'm so glad he'd gone to get the keys. And when he came back, I went, yeah, I don't fit in it.
Lindsey, have you ever driven an Elise?
I haven't. No. I think I would love to.
They are bucket list cars, but I could barely fit in when I was, 30 and fit, right? There's no way I'd be getting in one now, much, like Dan, and which is a shame because they're just amazing. They're amazing.
Yeah.
There's manual steering. There's just, it is, this term like a go-kart, right, which has been overused for years and years and years. There's nothing else that fits that description better. And it's like a go-kart.
It's like one of the early, distilled,
small.
like go-karty. Like it was one of the only things like it at the time when it came out.
Yeah.
I was so disappointed I didn't fit. I really wanted to fit.
I will say, I think if the top were off, I think you could fit.
Yeah. But also, like,
and that steering wheel is about 12 inches across.
The steering wheel is minute. The pedals are so close to each other, and the seat kind of digged in. So
they're like extruded aluminum now. It's so like supercar in a way, But small.
So I went to test drive an M4 convertible after that, which I did fit in perfectly. It's interesting because I don't know whether we've just become desensitized to speed, but it didn't feel that quick.
Oh, interesting.
And it, for the record, has 485 horsepower or something?
I think it's around, it was a competition, so I think it's 495 maybe.
Okay.
So in theory, on paper, it's a quick car, right?
Sure.
And I was in sport mode, I put my foot down, but it just didn't, like it was quick, but it wasn't as quick as I thought it was going to be. which was a real surprise.
Did you feel like there was any hesitation in the response, or do you feel like it's because cars have become so insulated that you don't have the sensation of it was responding the way that you'd expect, but you were insulated from it?
It could be both. Yeah. I mean, it didn't have an instant pickup. It kind of took a second. But, comfortable car. It was... The other thing that I thought about was you can tell the lineage. So I used to have an E46, and you could tell you were sitting in a product that had evolved from that E46.
Would you rather have an E46?
Yeah, absolutely, hands down. If it was reliable and
and now you know
the back falls out of them, doesn't it? So if that had all been sorted,
right,
that's important.
Find one post back falling out of and being addressed, then yes.
Yes. Yeah. Someone that's completely. Yeah, I would rather. Yeah.
Well, can we pose this question to the audience? Sorry, Lindsay, go ahead.
No, I mean, I had an E46 too for a time, and like I still think about it. I mean, there was something like so good about that. I think, and Dan, I don't know what your sense is about this, but like they were such a leap forward from the E36 too, which obviously I love the E36, but it was so different. Like the E46 was the first car that I experienced with like a steering wheel that had real, diameter to it, like to the actual steering wheel. And it was just such a level up in terms of like the appointments and the interior. And it was like, it felt incredibly luxurious, and it was a performance car. And I think they've stood the test of time in a lot of ways too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pose the question to the audience. What should Dan buy? So Elise is out of the question. Sounds like underwhelmed by a new M4 comp Cabrio.
I'm trying to test drive something this weekend.
Yeah.
But
may we guess?
Well, let me just say that Mercedes-Benz of Beverly Hills are not as good at getting information. I'm still waiting for a spec sheet on the car a day later. Whereas I texted a friend of ours and he sent me the spec sheet of that car within 5 minutes. So that might help you guess.
Like that friend of ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you guess what it is then?
I'm going to say a GT63 because I had a revelation or a vision of you in this thing, and I think it might be perfect.
But it's not convertible. It has to be convertible.
Is that because now that you're in LA, you want something convertible?
Yeah, I'm not going to do many miles. So when I do miles, I want the top down and.
Right. You want the full experience. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's a Mercedes?
No, I didn't say it was a Mercedes. And I said that a friend of ours got the spec sheet, so that should help.
So then it's a Porsche.
I think it's a Spider.
Close. I can't afford a Spider. They've gone up in value so much.
Just get yourself a GT4.
Right.
This is the 4-litre GTS.
Nice.
Yes.
That's
I approve.
So we'll see whether they let me test drive it after they've not given me any specs on it.
Dan, that is the better car for your situation than a Spider or a GT4. We're going to be scraping the shit out of the front lip everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Get the GTS 4.0. That is a wonderful car. Wonderful car.
The only downside is it's PDK. So, I would have loved a manual, but
right. But everything else is right.
But you're in LA. You're in LA. You're allowed.
That's true. I'm just going to get the spec on it. So it's Guards Red.
Oh, that's such a great
which
color.
is kind of a good Porsche color, isn't it?
It is.
It's a great Porsche color.
Heated steering wheel. It's got the adaptive 18-way seats, ventilated seats. I'm not sure about the navigation, including Porsche Connect, because that was a 2,300 option. Like
my GT4 doesn't have it, so it must be nav. Yeah. And it will allow you to connect your phone, which was also a separate option without the nav, if I recall. But yeah,
interesting. Yeah. So
I kind of like the idea of Dan getting a GT4, and then we can change the name of the show to the GT4 show.
GT4 and friends.
Yeah.
Well, I fully support the GTS, 4.0. I think it's a wonderful car, and this is a Boxster.
Yes, it's a Boxster.
Yeah,
would you trade in? Would I get rid of my SQ5, which I'd have to do based on that price? Would you sacrifice?
You know what, Dan?
I think
I probably would.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you'd love that car. I think you'd have it for a long time, and I think you'd have such amazing adventures, and you'd meet the most interesting people in that car. I think that's you get all the credit, good vibes. I think that's a great car. I think it's a great choice for you, and it's so obvious, but didn't think about it.
Yeah.
Well, and the nice thing is if you trade in the SQ5, then the only option is to drive the GTS, which is really that's why we're here, right? It's like always be driving.
Yeah.
Forces you to enjoy your fun car.
Yeah, you could do that in LA. I think you could
Totally.
get away with that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, watch this space. We'll see if they come back to
I'm
me
excited for you.
with any details. So
I love it. In LA in a red Porsche, just like living your best life.
Fully embracing the whole thing.
Yeah. So speaking of Porsches, someone should have the biggest smile on their face.
And I do.
For the next month.
I do.
Because, Ryan, you had an incident a few weeks ago where you tried to drive a Diablo and it broke before you got behind the wheel.
Yeah.
The same owner then trusted you behind the wheel of something even more expensive. So what have you been up to?
Yeah. So if you've listened to the show for a while, you know that I write for Autoblog as well, and I had proposed this series of articles around like the poster cars of my youth and sort of beyond. And so I got to drive a Ferrari 355, which I actually got to drive again today. If you read the article, got to drive it again today, but without the race seats and with the stock seats, it fit just fine. It was still a weird driving position, but it was fine. The Diablo, thank God I was not behind the wheel, but the Diablo broke some sort of linkage in very dramatic fashion, and we couldn't write about that. So this same owner, Brian, bless his heart, has been so kind to me. What do you want to drive next, right? And there was an F40, which caught my eye, but that's having some work done to it. So we next went to the Carrera GT. And you both know the Carrera GT is a dream car, right? It is there's so much mythology around this thing, right? The clutch, right? That it'll kill you, that it's and so I wanted to go into driving this thing, deciding if there's any truth to these rumors, right? And you may know, but very recently there was a recall with the Carrera GT, and they replaced
order.
Yeah. So it was. Of course, lots of people I think kept driving them, but but basically they updated some suspension bits, and then the big thing was they fitted the car with a tire that it has deserved for the last 20 years, which is a Cup 2 that's built for the car, right? So it's an N spec, Porsche spec. Which, by the way, I saw a presentation from Michelin on Cup 2s and how each model is individually sort of built for different manufacturers and things. So like a Cup 2 for a GT63 with all the weight up front is a very differently constructed tire than something for like a GT3 or a Carrera GT. But anyway,
Ryan, you had us on Carrera GT, and then you started talking about tires. Come on, what was it
sorry.
like?
Okay. Well, I just want to say,
so
this car had this car had the recall service done, and that included these new Cup tires. And as we all know, if you're listening to this podcast, you've read the articles about how the Carrera GT very recently circled the Nürburgring 16 seconds, I think it was, quicker than the same car did back in 2005, so 20 years ago. And that's nothing but tires, basically, right? So this is a car that I think had this sort of, people thought this car was dangerous. Obviously, there's, very famously Paul Walker and all this. But, the consensus now seems to be that this tire or this car was way ahead of the tire, right? And now this car has a tire that it deserves. So yes. To get to the point, I got to drive one of my all-time dream cars, a Carrera GT, today, and talk about a car that probably cost more than my house, right? You go in with some nerves, right? And again, this is a car that has a clutch that I think maybe uniquely, you do not depress the accelerator as you are engaging the clutch, right? Once you're moving, then you drive it like a normal car, normal Porsche, but it's that initial thing. The clutch is $40,000, and that's just for the part, right? So make sure I had my coffee this morning.
You sit in the car and you're about to start driving. Yeah.
Yes.
So you put your foot on the clutch.
Yes.
You build up some revs.
No, you don't. Do not build up any revs.
This is why they don't let me drive them. Come on, talk us through the process of driving a CGT.
Sure. So you get in, and it's got the old Porsche buckets for starters, right? So not what you get in a 918 or a GT4, GT3 or whatever, right? So they are they're different, and they're very comfortable, and I felt like they were quite accommodating versus the current ones. Like, I didn't get the pinch in my hips like, maybe I would in the newer ones.
How do you drive the fucking thing?
Okay, so you get in, and you
need to edit this, dude. Come on.
I will. All right,
and
so
make
you get
sure
in.
you
Right,
watch her on Spotify to see Dan's head explode.
Yes.
Hey, we've got time, right? We're only 49 minutes in. This is a spiritual experience. You got to bear with me here. This is, I have seen the mountain and it was good, right?
You got to set the stage.
I get in, and of course, it sounds amazing on cold start, right? Because it's a V10. I think it's 605 horsepower or something. I should probably check my facts and figures, but it sounds unlike anything else, right? But yet it's very Porsche-like. You look around, it is everything's bespoke, right? The radio is this little thing that's about 3 inches across, right? Versus a standard. The thing drives amazing. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I get. But it's the whole experience.
Dan's
it's a special
quit the show
thing.
right now.
It's a special thing. It's not just about driving. It's about sitting it and taking it all in. And
how do you start it? How do you?
You start it like a regular car, but
Ryan, what does it smell like?
It smells like rich people.
It smells like Dan's aggravation.
Definitely doesn't smell like patience.
Guys, it was so good. It was so good, but it felt like a Porsche. What's interesting is the flywheel must be about the size of a nickel because the power is immediate, right? The revs fall and build like nothing. It's one of those cars, and I think really only supercars manage this, where this thing has a red line of 8,500, and it's just getting going when you have to shift, right? So many cars drop off, right, when you have red line. This thing was an F1 engine, if I'm not mistaken, right? This thing was designed for Le Mans. This thing probably had an original red line of 12,000 RPM. Or something, right? And so they've dialed it back, right? And it just wanted to keep going, but it's that immediacy, right? It was epic. It was absolutely epic. I highly recommend, the whole, if you have the means, make it happen, because it is so good. Now, is it $1.5 million driving experience?
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
Do we have to tune into Autoblog to find out?
Yeah. So you don't put, I want to understand the process in case I ever get to drive one, right?
Yeah.
So you sit there, you've turned the engine on.
Yes.
Okay. You engage the clutch.
Yes. Foot on the clutch, foot on the brake, as you would any other manual car. Yeah.
Then you put it into gear.
Put it into gear. Yep.
Okay. And then you slowly just lift off the clutch without touching the accelerator.
Yep. First, you take off the parking brake, which is a traditional hand brake, but it's on the left, right? Yep. Okay. Yes, you just slowly lift off the clutch, and then until you don't want to touch the accelerator until you have completely come off the clutch.
Yeah.
Easier said than done because it is they're bottom hinged, which I guess I didn't know. So I thought bottom hinged pedals for Porsche went out with the last of the air cooleds, right? The 993. These are bottom hinged. They're they're these aluminum pedals, and the clutch is sprung very heavily. And it's not linear, so it's a little tricky, right? And but you do it right because you have no choice, right?
And is there any risk of stalling? Like, does the engine tell you it's going to stall?
Thank God I didn't stall, right? It's got so much power, which helps. But no, it's just I think it might even be an automated thing.
Yeah.
Where it's just it's built into the programming that's how it gets moving. It's weird, and I caught myself a couple times trying to ease in with
I was going to say, did you have to
thank God I
fight
didn't.
your instincts of like normal manual driving?
Absolutely, and Brian, who owned the thing, I caught him at least once, right, doing that, right, because it's just your natural, that's what you're taught to do. Right?
And is it a bad thing to like ride the clutch?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did. I sure as hell didn't because
I'd be screwed.
Oh man. But once you're moving, it's an absolutely normal car. It really is. It's really, really good. It doesn't really drive like any other Porsche I've driven. It definitely feels like a GT car or something, but it moves around in a way. It's a little twitchy, even with the recall stuff, the suspension bits and the tires. And as Brian, the owner, says, I never push it to its limits. I'll push my GT3, RS to its limits. I'll push my 355 to its limits on the track. There's like a little bit left that, it's the angel share or whatever that you just don't touch, right? Yeah. You kind of just let that be. You just let that be, and it demands respect. It commands respect, right? You feel that there's something more here that's beyond you as a driver, even if you're a good driver. And I was laughing out loud though. I mean, and that's only happened a handful of times. And granted, one time it was in a Miata, but that's a rare thing in a car. Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it was awesome, but it was also nerve-wracking, and it also, despite its excellence, made me appreciate something like the GT4 at a 10th or a 15th or whatever of the price. Right? It is. You get in, everything works as it should. The clutch is not $40,000, right? So it is an excellent thing. You should absolutely drive one, given the experience. If I had the money, I would buy one in a heartbeat. But it is it's an expensive car, and it is a car that, again, Brian, the owner, would say he doesn't take out all the time because it's kind of a pain in the ass, right? Like, you don't want to misstep, you don't want to burn the clutch, you've got to be very careful. It's very low, right? And shout out to our buddy Tom Horan, chair of the Colorado Grand, who I think owned a couple back in the day, may or may not be shopping for one now. But he said the first time he hit 78 miles an hour or whatever it is, and the wing rose up at about it really freaked him out, right? Like it scared him. I mean, it's because it's a massive thing that all of a sudden just appears, in the rear view. So, epic. I think almost certainly the most expensive car I've ever driven. But it lived up to that. It felt special. It felt great. It was amazing. And go drive with guys and let's compare.
10 out of 10. No notes.
10 out of 10,
Yeah.
But as I alluded to before, I was able to then get back into his 355 with the factory seats, and that really kind of made sense to me too in a way that it hadn't before. In a very, very different car, but also a special car. And then I got to drive across town to lunch and have lunch with our buddy Dan McInnes, and got to drive his 912. And that's another car. Have either of you driven a 912?
Not yet.
No, but it sounds like you did it in the wrong order.
I know. Well, even Dan himself referred to the 912 as a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Exactly.
A salty cracker, if you will.
Yeah.
It was a little bite of sorbet.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, so I have one more question about the Carrera GT.
Yeah, please.
So once you get moving, then when you're shifting gears, like after you're driving, do you still stay off the accelerator?
No. Once you are moving, you're good to drive it like anything else. And of course, it has this amazing shifter that's up in the dashboard, like an old Alpha Spider or something. It's this balsa wood or whatever, shifter that's delicate and. It's like you're shifting with like a lollipop or something. It's this amazing sensation.
To the 917, isn't it?
Yes,
same shifters they had in the 917.
Yes. And you wonder why more cars don't have that sort of position for the shifter, and maybe it's packaging or what have you. And speaking of the Corvette, to bring this full circle, you realize how much the C8 apes from the Carrera GT, right? With that. The bit with a call it the buttress or whatever that comes down the middle with the buttons and things. Yeah. It's very similar. It's all I could think about. But it's
funny.
I don't know. I might get in this GT4. Yeah, might get in this GT4 though and say, oh man, this just it doesn't feel like it used to. But it's a special car for special occasions. It's not an everyday car, right? I absolutely get why they're as popular as they are and as expensive as they are. This one had 9,000 miles, which I think kind of puts it in the middle for mileage, right? Because so many of them just didn't get driven. But here's the other thing. Shocked. They built 1,273 of these things. That's nothing. They built more F40s than they did Carrera GTs, which blew my mind.
Well, is there any data on how many have survived to this point?
Yeah, I don't know. But a lot. I think at this point, unless it's really gone, it will be rebuilt, right? So, and speaking with Brian, he did come across a couple of those, right, in the search process for a car. So they're out there as well. But they're amazing. I mean, they're special. You know, it's rare that you get in a car that really does feel special, right?
Yeah.
This car doesn't share parts with, you know, a Cayman or a 911. It just doesn't, right? It's
None of
its
that
own
foolishness.
thing. You know, you take the Targa top pieces off, you put them in the frunk, right, and they just fit perfectly. And then where a normal car would have the top latch in, the Carrera GT has little plastic sliders to cover up, you know, the unsightliness that are the latches, right? You know, I mean, you know, beat that Lotus Elise
to the
right?
eyes that are latches.
Yeah. So
Well,
sorry
like,
for the rant, but this was an epic day of driving.
Good. We just wanted the details.
Yeah.
We wanted the details. So.
Did you guys see, you know, I think it was like the last 2 to 3 years, Porsche took a Carrera GT and like stripped it down and redid it. And it's the Speedster Blue one. And it was up for auction a few years ago. And then it was actually, I got to see it again. So I got to see it a couple years ago at one of the Haggerty locations. And then it was actually at Airwater this year. So I got to see it again. And I know what you mean, Ryan, because you walk up to it and it's like, there's almost an aura, you know, there's a real presence to those cars. And especially that one, because it was such a unique example and it was a color they never came in. Like they may have even developed the color just for this project. But yeah, I mean, it's like, there's almost a vibration just looking at it. So I can't imagine driving it would be, you know, just a whole nother level.
Yeah, it is everything you think it's going to be. And more, you know, and that's it. But it's not something to be scared of. You follow that simple instruction of being careful with the clutch, right?
Yeah.
And after that, it's a normal car. It drives like a Porsche, right? Just a really, really powerful, excellent, amazing sounding Porsche. So
yeah. Well, we look forward to reading about it when you publish that article.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for indulging me. This was a good one. This was a fun one. This is a fun day.
Yeah. I kind of feel like it's my turn next. Lindsay's had her Gunther Works. Ryan's had his Carrera GT.
Yeah, what's next?
And I've got a Lotus Elise I don't fit in. So
right.
It's got to be something soon.
Well, I'm thinking
Boxster
GTS.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. We will see.
Yeah. That would be super fun.
It would. Anything else for you folks? Anything going on this weekend?
You know, shout out to Avance. They're doing a little get-together at Spinelli's Market in Denver. If you hear this, check their website. Those are always fun.
Fun.
That's
awesome.
That's it. And Fuel Fed, I think, has a Cars and Caffeine this weekend as well in Boulder. So do them both if you can.
Nice. How about you, Dan?
Lindsay, you up to much?
Nothing yet.
No? More rides in the M3?
Yeah.
I want to drive this thing. I really, really do, because I never got to drive one back in the day. You know, they were just out of my league. So.
Well, I mean, this one, it definitely would feel different because like all the suspension and the bushings and everything has been changed. But yeah, anytime you're in town, let me know.
Yeah.
There we go.
Make that happen.
Another reason to go visit.
Exactly.
Well, I think.
Dan, what about you? Sorry, I don't want to pass it. What are you doing this weekend?
If Beverly Hills Mercedes calls me back, I'm test driving a GTS. If they don't, I'm not. That's
well,
about
fingers
it.
crossed.
Yeah.
They call you back and you get to go test drive it, and then we can hear all about it next week.
Yes, you will fit. It will be awesome.
Otherwise, it'll be a complaint about a dealer next week on this show.
Right. And then you're
we
back.
should do a complaints show. I think we could probably fill a couple of.
We got lots of stories about dealers, but just to close circle on that, it was our good friend John Dicey who literally within 2 minutes was able to give me the full history on the car, the full spec.
Love that guy.
And I don't know whether I'm breaking him into jail for telling you that, but you know, those guys are really good at customer service.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Yep, John's the best for sure.
Absolutely.
Right, I think that's a show. Who's going to give us the phrase?
The phrase that pays, as they say.
Not it.
Yeah.
Lindsay, you're good at it.
All right, my turn. As we say, thanks for joining us, and always be driving
a Carrera GT.
Yeah. There you go.
If you can.
Yeah.
With great tires.
Yeah.
I'm driving my dreams all night tonight.
Until next week, it's That Car Show.